or the concept of like there not being that many consequences anymore. I agree with you on this, but I think that's the reason why there's a change.
No, I agree. I mean, I was thinking about it. I'm like, really, we're bailed out of every bad decision we make. Like, it's like if we sleep around, there's like birth control and there's abortion, right? Which I'm very like pro-life.
Yeah.
And even if we get pregnant, like we can put them on child support, we can give it up for adoption, like which maybe hypocritical. My parents did that, but and then even if we're bad with our money, like there's a million government benefits. Yeah. And it's actually crazy in the UK. I'm doing this like divorce documentary right now.
So you're given a divorce attorney. What would no? It was something like when in cases of abuse, the state pays for an attorney.
Yeah, I think it was like 5 years ago, or maybe 7, roughly. The UK made it like that you get free counsel if you accuse a guy of abuse. And so basically, like with one phone call, like if I'm dating someone and I just decide, I'm really just not feeling it anymore, I can go to the police, get him arrested, and he can't see his kids. I can get their version of a restraining order there with one phone call, kick him out of the house he lives in, put him on child support until the trial, which oftentimes is like 6 months to a year and a half. And then by the time we get to trial, he hasn't seen his kids in a year and a half. And so now they give her primary custody because the kids haven't been in their life. And there's no consequence for this. And they also get a free lawyer and he has to pay for his.
Yeah, that makes it rough. That when you consider a 50% divorce rate. I don't know what it is in the UK. I know
it's roughly the same.
Yeah, it's like 53%, something like that.
Yeah.
And then the concept of the majority of those marriages are dissolved by women, or the initiation of divorce is initiated by women.
Yeah.
Like, so for instance, here would be the difference in like me and like some other people in the space. I will say if 70 or 75% of divorces are initiated by women, then it's a smart thing for a man to get a prenup. But I'm saying that not because women are hoes. I'm saying that because the stats show that the likelihood is she's going to initiate the divorce. And so she should not be incentivized financially to initiate divorce with you. This is something me and Brandon Carter talk about all the time. It's like, what?
Well, I don't think marriage is marriage anymore.
Okay.
Like it can't be marriage if you can get out for any reason.
Yeah.
Like if you read marriage vows, it's like for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, like all that. So it's like, is it really marriage if the average marriage is like 8 years?
Yeah.
Like that's not marriage. It's something else. It's basically just like a contract for a long-term relationship, essentially. I think it's sad. Like I don't say that in like, but it's interesting because when I first got into the red pill space, I was kind of triggered. I was like, why are these guys so anti-marriage? Like my parents are good. Like they had these kids, they built this business together. They both came from nothing. Like it seemed like a really good idea. But then I've been doing this divorce documentary and I'm just like, I can't think of a reason why I'd sign up for that as a guy.
Yeah.
I don't know as much about the laws here, but in the UK, it's like crazy.
Yeah, that's another thing that Rollo said, which was he encouraged marriage in his own life, but he doesn't like the idea of marriage, the current way that it's done.
I hate how much they run him up the flagpole for that.
Yeah,
it actually really bothers me because they never. I don't know that. I think the fan is on, but they never actually listen to what he's saying.
Yeah,
like because he's saying that the contract is bad. Like that's what he's against. He likes the institution of marriage.
Of course, yeah.
But like today's marriage isn't marriage. But it really irritates me because they always misquote what he says.
Yeah.
But it's like they're not listening.
Yeah, I'm used to that. Him getting misquoted for what he says.
Yeah.
So the thing is with the marriage deal, and I've heard this too. If you talk to Justin Waller or Sneeko or whatever, they're going to say, I wouldn't have a legal marriage, like or marriage including the state, but I would have a marriage outside, like a religious marriage.
But it doesn't even matter. Like that's the sad thing. Half the guys I interview, I guess it's funny, it's a divorce documentary, but half of them aren't even married. It's just with the kids. Like I can't think of a way.
Well, they're losing their kids and not married. Which in case in the United States, I know you have a much harder time keeping custody. So for those of you who don't understand, if a man and a woman have kids together and they're not married, the likelihood of the woman taking the children full custody is actually much higher.
Yeah.
Than if they're married. Yeah.
Well, like I had guys that I interviewed where they avoided like the legal marriage, but the same thing happened to them. They were put on child support. They were accused of abuse, and it's really sad to see. Like it is so sad when I've interviewed so many guys where like I wouldn't be surprised if they committed suicide.
So that's another thing we're going to talk about is that men being zeroed out after the age of 40. in their 40s and 50s, when there's their financial destitution and then their wives have left them, they're 9 times as likely to commit suicide.
Yeah, no, I see it. Like I've interviewed these guys. Like there's one guy, this state, literally, like he was warning, like his wife or girlfriend or whatever, basically got into this like feminist group. And that's like the other thing, because they'll be like, oh, just find a good girl. But even a good girl can get like the wrong friends or in the wrong group. And that's what happened to a lot of these guys. And so they would get into, so like she would get into this like feminist group and they would start like talking or whatever. And the crazy thing that happened was he was warning the state, saying like this is getting out of hand. Like these people are like, the group is crazy.
Yeah.
And one of the girls in the friend group killed the son out of spite. Like these are the people like I literally have talked to. And the state then took the other guy's child away. So like not only did they not listen to him when he warned them about like that group, they took his kid away and now he's in like foster care.
Yeah, it's becoming one of these things where you can imagine in those court systems, they're like, well, we don't know what's going on, so let's just go ahead and give it to the mother. Well, right? They're using heuristics to just make the trials quicker and faster.
Well, and I didn't realize that in family court, it's not about evidence. It's on a balance of probabilities. Yeah. I'm sure you probably know this, but
so in civil court, you don't, in a criminal court, it's going to be beyond a reasonable doubt. Yeah. In a civil case, which this would be a civil case, you have a preponderance of evidence. Yeah. So you have a preponderance. So that's a different thing. You can be held 40% liable or 60% liable. So 2 people get in a car accident. So this would probably be a similar type of situation.
No, the way it works though is there's like 6 or 7 types of abuse.
Okay.
And so like I don't know exactly what the number is, but let's just say it's like on a scale of 1 to 10, and if you get a score of let's just say a 6 or 7, you're considered abusive. And the problem is they're expanding the definition of abuse. So they're saying like coercive control is abuse. So if I don't want to like go out, if you don't want me to go out clubbing with my friends, if financial abuse, so you didn't let me spend $5,000 on the credit card. I can even say that you raped me because I didn't actually want to have sex when we were married. Yeah. Like it's crazy. And if a guy gets like a 6 out of 10, and the women's shelters are in on it, like, because basically they'll go to the women's shelters. All these feminists are there telling the girls exactly what to say based on like your background. So they have like a story to give the girls for each, like, this is what you say for a Nigerian guy, this is what you say for a Polish guy. Like it's
wow.
It's crazy. I wanted to, I couldn't find someone crazy enough to do this with me, but I've literally wanted to like find people that could like try to go inside of the system to like show this, because I've heard this from multiple guys. Yeah.
That is crazy. The thing is, like, let's just say somebody's listening to this right now and they're like, well, most women wouldn't do this. And I understand where that argument would come from. My point is, you would be incentivized if you wanted to keep your kids and you're a woman and you understood that all I have to do is in the short term play fast and hard with the rules and I get to keep my kids. What would you be willing to say, like, for anyone who's out there who just thinks that this never happens, what would you be willing to say to take your kids away from your partner? Would you be willing to say that he did these things to you? And then if you were aware that there was a system and was being coached through that system in order to do these things, what would you be willing to do?
Well, and I think of like male, and this is kind of a weird thought process I have, but I think of like male evil and female evil. And like if you take male evil to its extreme, I think of like aggression, right?
Okay.
Like murder, like whatever.
Like Mao Zedong and Pol Pot, Adolf Hitler.
Yeah.
And Joseph Stalin.
And when I think of female evil to its extreme, I think of spite.
Okay.
And I think like women, like we're at our worst when we're in like a relationship where we feel like we were wrong. Whether we were or we weren't, we're at our worst. And right now, like the government is giving us the power to do the absolute, like to do awful things when we're like at our worst. That's like, how many more guys would like kill if the government incentivized them to do that? Yeah. Like when they're most angry.
So let's talk about this. I think I wasn't planning on this subject, but you'll probably find this interesting. So I have some friends of mine that are worth a couple $100 million. We'll just use Bilzerian as an example. Dan Bilzerian. He lives a couple blocks from here, right? So Dan has girls sign an NDA when they come into his house, and he has cameras in every single room, specifically for the reasons that you talked about. And we had this discussion before, and he says, I've never had a problem because beforehand we film everything. And like it's one of these things where I tell guys to film everything. You notice whenever there's a fight on Fresh and Fit, immediately everyone takes out their phone because they're afraid that the girl is. And by the way, there's a group of girls behind Chris that their specific job, like Icy, their specific job is to get the girls out of there without the men touching those girls. Does that make sense? Because that's the world that we live in now. So they make sure, and then they film everything so that make sure that there's no You've seen the situations before where somebody's accused of a crime and then the video comes out and it's completely the opposite of what they say. They do that, and I think it's really smart. I encourage guys to do this all the time. Never type anything in a chat that's going to incriminate you. Because let's just say a girl and a guy go back and forward on IG, like they're DMing each other, and then the girl goes and deletes all of her messages, and it just looks like the guy has just been stalking her, screenshots it and sends it to her friends. So I don't write incriminating stuff on there. Okay, I recommend people don't do that. And then whenever there's any kind of altercation, I say film everything.
Yeah. As many of you know, I was just banned on TikTok, and we are demonetized on a daily basis on this platform. If you want to help, please consider sending a super thanks below. Every donation helps, and it helps make what we do possible.